Hey, it's Jacqueline from the CTS-Sports room, coming to you from my car. Because it's Christmas time, and my house is full of people, and I told them I was going grocery shopping, but really, I just needed a break. So I downloaded this new app that we just partnered with. It's SuperDraft Pro. It is the future of fantasy sports. And you can play for cash, prizes, and experiences that money can't buy. Like the peace and quiet I'm getting right now. You can play for free, or you can get their non-gambling subscription. Either way, you can still win cash and prizes. If you want more information, my friend Kyle Murray is going to tell you about it.
It's not easy being the fastest quarterback you've never seen. I'll be right back. There's no quicker way to get into DFS. Play Super Draft today and see for yourself.
SuperDraft Pro and Caesars Entertainment are bringing you the future of fantasy sports. So, if you want to play like a champion or need a break from the family, download SuperDraft Pro today. Play like a champion. Information will be in the link below.
A5 fans, how y'all doing today? This is one more Sanchez, and you're watching the Main Event on YouTube. I want to thank you for taking the time to like and subscribe. Today, I have a very special guest where we talk about all boxing. I've had the privilege to interview him before. One thing that I do love about him is that he provides the truth about boxing, unbiased, and daily reports. And so we're going to kind of talk about, get into more details. I like to bring my friend. Actually, I would even consider my mentor. A lot of it I've asked him, a mentor, Mr. Marshall Brown. Welcome to the show.
Well, man, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me back. And I'm proud of what you're doing. I see how you're moving, man. You're doing great, bro. And I love your growth. And I wish you continued success.
Thank you. So I brought you to this show here, the Main Event, because again, I always lean to you. I always ask you questions, and you never hesitated. You've always been there. You've always answered questions. One thing that I wanted to ask you was, the big fight. The controversy of the fights, and when you pick a certain fighter,
Right.
we're based on numbers, facts. What would you say the biggest issue that you get confronted a lot or backfire because of something you release?
So so there's two things at work when I pick a fighter. This most of the time, honest to God, I don't want to sound pedantic or like some kind of phenom, but I could tell who's going to win a fight all the time. However, I do pick a guy that I might want to win, and I go public with that. And I go public with that support. And what that does is it creates a kind of a bias from me. People perceive it as a bias because I'm picking somebody over the favorite or over statistically the one that's supposed to win. Now, and that might be 100% true because in my mind, I know who's going to win. Because styles make fights, I could tell. But with boxing, there's always an unknown factor. But I go with who I want to win, and I go public with it. And I live and die by that. So the recourse from that is people who hold you in high regard, say you don't know boxing because you picked the wrong guy. And you'll know, and you'll get to understand that this business is about relationships. And when you develop a relationship, because I don't have a lot, people ask me who's my favorite fighter. I can't say who's my favorite fighter. I have fighters or friends who happen to fight, and they're genuine good people, right? And those are people I view as a friend. So even if I believe that they might lose, I'm going to go public with my support for them. And again, that creates some kind of a stigma, because you'll be viewed as a guy who has a bias and is unfair. So that's the backlash.
Uh-huh. Now, can you tell us a little bit about your channel? Your I know how'd you get into the sport of boxing, and how were you able to grow the base?
So I used to box years ago. I'm talking about 21, 22 years ago. I'm an older guy. And
we're the same age. We're the same age.
and so that my passion for the sport has never dwindled. I mean, I went to school, got my master's degree, started a business and all that stuff. But my passion for the sport has always been there. And one of the things that really drove me to the sport is the education factor. And I realized that I had a connection with some of the fighters, and I tried to use my big brother influence and try to educate them on the sport of boxing. Because, a lot of times, think about this. When you go for a job, most people just want to know about the job, but they never ask about the person who had the position prior, right? And a lot of fighters do the same thing. They come in and they make their way, but they don't understand who was there before them. So what I try to do is educate them on the errors that people have made that came before them, and try to guide them to avoid those pitfalls. Because, the Bible says there's nothing new under the sun. And this is true. So when you find one fighter, you can just you see the pathways, you can see the commonalities, this is what's going to happen. This is where this is going to lead. So I try to build relationships based off honesty, truth, because I've never asked a fighter for anything in my life. I've never asked them for a ticket. I never asked them for anything. I only want to see them when my food is on the table. I'm blessed, right? So what I'm trying to share with them is a knowledge that they might not have. And when you come to them with knowledge, but you're not asking for anything, people are more receptive versus saying, look, I have knowledge, let me sell it to you. I'm saying, I have knowledge, let me share with you. And let me get your LLC up. Let me show you how to keep what you earn, do tax deferment and legally. So these are the conversations that I have in DMs with fighters, and it just builds relationships. It builds, tell them, get your paperwork in order. When you go sit and negotiate with a promoter, be a promoter. So they're sitting down and they're talking to a boss. You know what I mean? So these are the type of relations. This is how I got into it, because I've seen a lot of people leave the sport with less than what they came with. And that's tragic in my mind.
They weren't able to invest. They just spent.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of smart people. One of the stories that, of last year that I really, really enjoyed, and it was during the time when Tank and
Ryan,
they were wanting to fight each other. Ryan, kind of fought off. And you asked the question, what is one good thing you like about Tank? And then Tank replied. They paused, right? Because it's a question that's never been asked. But as a fan, as a human, you could appreciate that. That was like a work of art, because they both they weren't ready for that question. And that was awesome. I just want to say that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And but what you'll find is, outside of with Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, who probably had a legitimate beef because in Wilder's mind, he was cheated. Most fighters have a mutual respect for each other. And a lot of it is showmanship. They just want to sell a fight. But with guys like Gervonta and Tank, they actually really respect each other, and they see each other's craft. They know that they know they're a formidable opponent, regardless of what people say or how they view them or who might beat whom. They know that those guys they know that one another bring something special to the table. So, and I think it's important for fans who like to pick sides to see that it's not personal. It's just business. So when you ask questions like that, like you said, they were taken aback, but then they honest in answering the question. And I said, what does he do good? And what does he do, great? Because it's important for them to understand their elevation really depends on their opponent, right? Because think about it. If you're in a ring with a guy that does not bring the best out of you, you're not going to show your best. So it's a way of paying homage to one another indirectly when you ask a question like that, right? Because they'll hear that and be like, oh, all right, cool. I got to say something nice back. You know what I mean?
What do you think of all the fights that's been announced and that's been ready for next month in November and December?
I got to tell you, bro. People like to say boxing is not here, boxing is bad, with the exception of the political stuff that go behind the scenes. The roster is exciting. The roster is pointed because if you look at this, I feel like this: the Teofimo Lopez and Lomachenko fight was a boost in the arm. It gave boxing that shot it needed, right? But I think that we went away from that and then we start putting in less than desirable matchups. But when you get the best fighting the best and you have that consistency, that's when boxing is the best. For example, you had Alexander Usyk and Anthony Joshua. Great fight, great matchup, upset. Boxing is good. You got Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury back to back. Then you got Shakur Stevenson and what's his name, Jamel Herring. These type of fights are really what we need. Sean Porter and Terrence Crawford. Big name fights, big things, and it's just amazing when these things happen. And this is what boxing really, really needs.
Do you think it kind of helped that now they're mandated to fight instead of kind of running around? Like, did that kind of help these fights happen this year?
I think we it's important. Okay, it's almost like the government has a role and the sanction bodies have a role. Mm-hmm. When the government does its job, then people prosper, right? When they do their job and nothing more. When the sanctioning bodies do their job, boxing prospers and nothing more. When the sanctioning bodies put out these mandates and it's really favoring a fighter versus another fighter, it's not fair. But when they put it out and it's a mandate for a fighter who actually deserves the shot, boxing wins. Because when you look at boxing, right, the next best thing to a champion is the mandatory. Because they fought their way into contention. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. They got that spot. So the next best thing to a champion is the mandatory. And a lot of people would disagree with that, but it's an honest truth. That's the next best person. And you'll find out. Look what happened with Usyk and Joshua. The next best thing.
Tyson Fury and Wilder. It was mandatory.
And Wilder. And actually that wasn't a mandatory. That was an elective. That first fight was an elective for Deontay Wilder, and Tyson Fury and then made a 3-fight contract deal. Okay, because they understood the magnitude of it. But it wasn't a mandatory. That was an elective fight for Deontay Wilder. He didn't have to fight Tyson Fury, but he understood the financial implications that came with that.
Yeah. The other one, with this being said, the most exciting one is Benavidez has a shot to fight the winner of Canelo and Plant, where sometimes if it's not mandatory, we'll never see that as a fan. And I'm excited if that happens, whatever the turnout is.
Here's the reality of that one. And Plant and Canelo actually broke records to be able to do business. Because look, for a lot of people, luckily Canelo left Golden Boy because now he's free to do business with who he wants, right? Mm-hmm. So he can cut deals with PBC, Matchroom, Top Rank. He can go any which way he wants. I like that idea that he will become the mandatory for whoever the winner is. But will it actually happen? I'm really skeptical on that because Canelo has said in the past that he's not fighting any more Mexicans.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I don't know how true that is with the money that's involved, but The other thing is the danger that Benavidez presents. He's a different fighter than Caleb Plant. Caleb is going to try to outbox him. He's not going to try to outpunch him, right? I'm supporting Caleb because I like his story. I like him as a person. But in my heart, I know that there's a possibility he's going to lose. However, I'm going to publicly support him because I want him to win.
So you know, I don't really talk about, like we said it before, that because we talk to a lot of boxers, we can't say you have a favorite, even deep down we know we have. I like Canelo as a fighter. I don't like the attitude that he brings to the sport. That for me is a big turnoff. This fight here, I'm going for Caleb Plant for two reasons. Right. Number one, again, I like his resume. I like where he's coming from. He has nothing to lose. Nothing. There's just something that as a fighter you can see in him. But I think that if he's able to pull this off, then I think Benavidez and him have a better chance than the Canelo. Then there's a better opportunity for more like maybe the Charlo brothers, because he's going to fight him, where Canelo will probably be more on the business side. So
and I agree with you 100%. And that's a PBC in-house fight. So should Caleb pull it off, Benavidez and Caleb would be an easy fight to make, right? Technically, it should be because they both were not managed, but they both fight on PBC cards. Whereas Canelo would probably go for the next best business move, and it wouldn't necessarily mean the mandate. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I agree with you 100% on that.
And that's one thing, like switching kind of gears, like the MMA, UFC, for them to have just one umbrella and make each other fight. I wish that boxing was be able to do that, because it was like that kind of back then. But I feel like that will put the sport on top again. A lot of it's business, and I get it, because the older generation, like Tyson, Sugar Ray, they all lost all their money, right? And now, we get smarter with generations, and so now you got to protect yourself. There's a lot of people who won't sign like what is it, Lopez, and it came down to money.
It comes down to money, but that was I want to say 99% of it was Top Rank, and I want to say he had a compulsion or an affection towards Lomachenko, and when Lomachenko lost, he didn't anticipate T.O. to win, and he didn't understand and he didn't appreciate T.O.'s business acumen. So T.O. won, and he came back and said, "Look, I want more now." Bob was being disrespectful and saying, "You're not worth what you're asking for." Didn't honor it, so it went to purse bid. This is another story, but Triller comes out with these astronomical numbers. Of course, the fighter's going to run to it.
Yeah.
But they couldn't deliver. Now they can't deliver, and so it defaults back to DAZN, who is the second bidder for the purse bid. Either way, T.O. does good, but what's the worst part about it is that as a promoter, Bob Arum gets 18%, even not putting on a fight. So that purse, he's making more money than he was going to make if he would have put the fight on.
Hey.
And that's I think part of his strategy. Once he seen now people was going crazy for the purse bid, But boxing, if you look at it, boxing is a what have you done for me lately sport, and people have a short memory. T.O. has been out the limelight, so to speak, since the big win. It would have been ideal situation for him to be back in the ring 4 months after the Lomachenko win. Mm-hmm. But it's almost a year now. Postponement. Now, new promoter. And that's the business of boxing that we understand, but we don't like.
What's your take on boxers calling out other boxers back in the day when they used to spar each other? Like there's a lot of that happening lately, and what's your take on that?
Well, I, in my opinion, my humble opinion, and people might disagree with this, but in my opinion, it's a fair game. I think fighters have the right to taunt fighters. Fighters earn the right to be disrespectful towards one another because it's a competitive sport. Where I draw the line is when fans who never been punched in the face start talking that disrespect towards a fighter. Let fighters do that. So I think there's a unwritten rule that you don't video your sparring. You don't. But we live in a different era now.
Yeah.
Social media is it's like hedonistic calculus. What have you done? And more for less. I want this now, kind of thing. So social media is like if I don't see it, it didn't happen. If you didn't post it, it's not real. So you can go and tell that, look, I did it great in the sparring session. But now social media is like, nah, man, I need receipts. So, and you look at the generation that's coming up, they're brought up on the internet. Ask them how they use a phone. We put a phone up like this out here. They go like this because it's cell phone.
Yeah.
You know, it's
The
different.
little flip.
Yeah. It's different. So the culture is different. So this is why they motivated by that.
Switching gears, I want to kind of talk about, things, the positive things that you do for the sport. I know that you give back a lot. You do a lot of nonprofit, and can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So doing my when I got into the sport, I realized that a lot of people have fighters. It's an ugly, lonely sport, and financially, I got to start driving now. So
No problem.
Just bear with me, okay, brother?
Okay.
Bear with me. All right. Fighters. It's a some guys fight they pay for fights. They can't get the fight, so they want to get their ranking. They pay for their rankings, right? And I started manufacturing boxing gloves and equipment, and I realized that safety is paramount in boxing. Some guys get equipment that's hand me down, because when I used to box, I used to go to the PAL, and oh my God, I hated the stuff that I had to wear because I couldn't afford the gear, because it was other people's stuff and sweaty and stink. But I was just happy to be there because I was a kid. But now when I see young kids that want to do that, and especially in urban environments, Black and Latino, I have Boxing Sweet Science apparel that I donate to, because I want to make sure that they get the best advantage that they can get coming from disadvantaged areas. So I pay for the equipment, I pay for everything, and some people sometimes donate, and I appreciate it. But for the most part, it's my way of giving back to the sport that I literally believe saved my life. If it wasn't for boxing giving me discipline, I would be a knucklehead from the street. I never drank or smoked, because when I was going to the PAL, they told me that athletes don't drink and smoke. And that stuck with me my whole life. So I never drank and smoked. I ate a lot, but I never smoked reefer, marijuana, did any kind of drugs, because I knew that would give you a disadvantage as a fighter. Now, the new culture, they believe that it's important to do those things because they want to fit in. I'm not knocking anybody, but like Ward said, there's a 10 commandments that certain things that you just don't do as a fighter. And until you retire, your body is your temple. And you don't put anything in there that's going to give you a disadvantage.
I see a lot of retired boxers. They just don't look the same, when they start.
Yeah.
Regularly.
When you're a trainer and you train in boxing and training as boxing, it's a calorie deficit thing you're doing. But when you stop fighting, that calorie, man, it's going to be on a surplus, and you're not working out as much as you would, because, you don't have to.
What is something that the viewers, if they visit your page, what is something that they can expect that kind of differentiation from everybody?
Honesty, candor. I like to I give analysis, and I try to be as honest and forthright as possible, with a little bit of satire, and there's some shock value to it, because it's important to keep people on their toes. So and I try to educate. So if people don't understand what's happening, I explain in detail what's going on in boxing and why the fight didn't get made or why it was made, or things like that. So that's what I like to share. It's an informative, educational roller coaster ride with a little bit of satire.
What is something that you think should be about the sport that should be debunked? When they think of boxing, they think of a certain thing that it's not even true.
That fighters are unintelligent. I think that is a myth. That fighters are uneducated, they're unintelligent. That is absolutely the furthest from the truth. Very special people. Most of them are very, very intellectually high IQs, because it takes a lot to do this. And they say if your boxing is your only talent, then you don't have one. So most of these guys really have two talents, and you'll find out once you get to know them.
And then one last thing, since I've been following, you had a huge following, numbers wise. It kept going down. You had to restart 2 or 3 times. If that happens to a lot of people, they quit. They're just like, I'm done with everything. You kept going. What is a piece of advice that you can give those who may want to quit because, they just didn't want to start all over again?
Everything happens for a reason. And the true test of a person is not where you stand in good times, it's where you stand in adversity. So you have to find a way to keep going. This is my passion, bro. If nobody ever liked a picture, I would still post. Right? If no one ever commented on anything I said, I would still post, because this is what I love. It's like Michael Jordan. If he never made it to the NBA, he still shoot a basketball. So this is what my passion is. So they can't stop me, bro. They can't stop me.
And then, one last thing, and I think it's real important for hopefully everybody. We'll cut this clip and then we can share it. The whole, if you're not a fan because you don't like Hispanics or Mexicans in this case, look at us now, 2 people. We're talking boxing. There is no color in boxing, y'all. This is, like I said, I've always reached out to Mr. Brown, Marshall, and I said, hey, man, what do you think of this? And he's always showed me love. So whenever you guys think about it that way, it's not about that. It's about us being fans as well. And so I think that has to be shared and let everybody know.
You my brother, man. You my brother. And I love everybody. I hate people that disrespect me, because I'm going to disrespect them back. But I love everybody. Respect is first. I respect everyone. That's how I was raised, and I think that's how everybody should be raised.
You and I come from that cloth. We got to respect each other,
bro. That era.
It's different. And then where can we find you and where can we follow you?
Well, I'm on Boxing Sweet Science 2.0 across all social media platforms. That's YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere, and yeah, everywhere, bro.
You can also get the merch, right?
Yeah, absolutely, on my website, boxingsweetscience.com.
All right.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate the plug.
No problem. What is something that you're going to work on this year? Is there any new projects that you're working on or new interviews?
I do have a big platform coming on. Eventually, I'm going to set up, and it's very, very informative. It's going to be like a Q&A session with fighters who's going to actually do tours and help meet with disadvantaged youth and talk to them about their struggles and be real with them. And I have a whole bunch of fighters that's really, really engaged and that's willing to go. So I'm excited about that.
I'm excited to listen to that.
Oh yeah, that's going to be huge, bro. That's going to be
All
huge.
Right. Everyone, here's my final thoughts about today's episode. Like I stated earlier, Marshall's a really cool guy. His platform is really well, very intelligent stuff, very well said, has a huge heart. And again, the passion that he has for the sport and what he'll go with and build rapport with boxers says a lot. I'm excited about his new project next year. And again, you guys can catch him and buy merchandise. And for today's episode, again, I want to thank CTS crew. You can watch us on YouTube. That's where all our work is at. And I want to thank the producer, Joey Lasada, for giving me the platform of the main event. Also, I want to big shout out to my sponsor, Gin Takes a Cake, here in Austin, Texas. And finally, if you guys have any questions, be sure to follow me at One More Sanchez on all social platforms. Until the next one.